I'm the operations manager at the Alliance for Extraterrestrial Diplomatic Contact. That's quite a mouthful. But basically, what I'm doing at the AEDC is welcoming aliens. Okay, put it in simplified terms. But how is it applicable to solving the global crisis on Earth? And continuing where Gerald left off, it's more of a psychological answer or more of a philosophical answer right now, because I think on Earth, the problem is that we are very polarized right now. People are not agreeing with each other, and I think that's perfectly fine. Now, what's not fine is that we are not accepting other people's views. Now, imagine if we were to welcome aliens from other planets and we are not united, would they actually come? Because for a civilization to be so advanced, they actually have to have surpassed certain challenges in the progression of civilization, as Gerald mentioned. So we have to get to a stage where we are more of a civilization that is cooperative with each other, that is more aligned with each other. But that doesn't mean that we always agree with each other, but it means that we must accept that we have different views, because humans have different views, and I'm sure aliens have different views. So when we talk about that, I think when we talk about global crisis, the first thing we have to do is a change of mindset, right? A change of mindset means we have to change our philosophies, and how we approach other people or even other beings. So I'm not a person who will tell you to believe in aliens or extraterrestrials. I'm actually quite a realistic person. I believe that the alliance is necessary because it's something like, if you've watched this science fiction called Star Trek on TV, you realize that the future needs to depend on a society that is quite utopian, right? By utopian, I mean a society that's willing to accept differences, and a society that's willing to accept like consciousness, that is the ability to be aware of this universe itself. So let's say we encounter aliens, okay? Again, you don't have to believe in the concept of aliens, but bear in mind, there are billions of habitable planets in this universe. So think of the possibility that we are just a grain of sand on the beach. So there's like billions and trillions actually of galaxies out there. So the possibility of us being the only consciousness or the only awareness of this universe is such a waste. So if okay, I'm saying if there are other alien races or the extraterrestrials or other life forms that exist out there, can we accept them if we cannot even accept ourselves, right? So we need to be able to start from the human race first. And I believe by doing so, we solve our own global crisis. And by solving our own global crisis, then we can be accepted to the federation, or let's say our alliance of different extraterrestrials, if they exist. And if not, then we would be accepted into the different multitudes of thinking on Earth itself. So if you think about it right now, there's so much polarization going on, there's so much ways of, people not agreeing with each other and attempting to go to war. But how do we actually transition to the stage where we understand people? Now, I myself have been a game developer. I work as a game developer, and I realized that when you work in a team, because when you're working in a team to develop a game, it's like developing a movie. So there are many different skill sets. There are people who are programmers, there are people who are artists, there are people who are sound engineers, there are designers, script writers. So there are very different ways of thinking. And again, when you develop a games, there are different types of games. There are mobile games, there are PC games, and people have different ways of thinking. But how do you get these people to work together? So first of all, you need to get a group of people who agree with each other. so that there's not so much infighting going on. So in a way, we have to give people the freedom of movement to have different groups that they can work together and be creative. So I think what we need here is creativity to solve problems and to produce productive objects or productive things in this universe. So when I talk about that, it goes back to what Jarrell said about artificial intelligence. We have come to a stage where artificial intelligence have progressed. Artificial intelligence has progressed so much that it's able to provide us with a lot of resources that previously, during the ancient civilizations, we need a lot of people to do. So let's say throughout the progression of society itself, we reach a stage where we need farming, agriculture, we need construction. So we need a lot of people at that time, right? But because of that, it has created a segregation in society which exists to today, and that is the society that's based on consumerism or consumer-oriented society, and that means it's like capitalism, where we do use money to trade and then to create things. But it also means that a group of people have risen in power, all right? They are like the governments of today, which have become quite separated from the people, or they don't understand that, it's not that they don't understand, it's just that they represent people, but not everybody has the same view. So it goes back to my initial talk of acceptance, because different people have different views, right? But when the majority of people are manipulated by the government to believe in certain things, then we tend to, be like sheep, right? But the problem is a lot of people are unhappy, or the system itself is not very fair, because people who are in power want to remain in power and try to influence others to believe in whatever they say, whether it's for their own good or not. But it's always for the good of the people in power to remain in power. And now that is a problem, because it does not give us the opportunity to solve the global crisis in a very creative manner, because we are not allowed to use our creativity. So back to game development again. When we are not given the ability to solve something creatively, we are not given the ability to create a game creatively, the product, which is the game itself, comes out as a game that is not very entertaining. It's just like a movie, right? If it's just made for the sake of making money, it's not very entertaining. In fact, it just tries to appeal to the masses to make money, but it does not really make us think and to solve problems. And that translates to society itself. So if we were to solve this problem of the global crisis of the earth, having all this multitude of problems, then we have to be able to organize people in such a way that smaller groups of people are able to solve problems, and they are mobile, meaning that people can move within these groups. So what that actually means is that we're actually returning to the tribal system. So as Jarrell mentioned, we started out with the tribal system, but we actually are progressing again back towards the tribal system. Now, why is that so? Because right now, with artificial intelligence, we're able to use the resources to not focus so much on work, right? So we are heading towards a society where we can be, what should I say? We can actually follow our passions and be creative, because artificial intelligence allow resources to be allocated to us without us working to survive. Instead, we are working to be creative, right? Or working for our passions. Why? Because artificial intelligence is more effective in actually gathering the resources for us to survive. So if we allow artificial intelligence to be able to gather those resources for us to survive, then we can just focus on being creative and accepting each other. Now, for that to happen, you have to realize that we have to work in such a way that we are very modular and become tribes. Because with this tribal system, we understand each and every one of our little tribe. So there are not too many people. And when we understand each other, then we understand that we have to take into account the perspective of those around us. So I think that if we move towards this system, then we are able to solve a lot of the global crisis that's happening today. And I think that is one of the major things that we have to accept as a human society before we can accept extraterrestrials. Because imagine if we ourselves are extraterrestrials and we go to space and we encounter a planet where people are fighting with each other, or the aliens are fighting with each other, will we actually present ourselves to them? So I think you can answer that for yourselves. We don't want to present ourselves to a not united alien civilization, and that is I guess that's the answer why the alliance exists.